Give me all the money, hurry, or I will shoot! Hey, kid! Hey.
What do you want? Get out of the way!
Billionaire witnesses Waitress. Stay calm. During robbery. Didn't know. She was a veteran. When tech billionaire Marcus Webb saw waitress Sarah Martinez face down an armed robber without flinching, he thought she was just incredibly brave. He had no idea she was fighting battles he couldn't see, carrying victories no one would ever know. Romano's diner existed in that liminal space between midnight and dawn, where fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects and coffee grew thick as motor oil. Rain painted abstract patterns on windows that had witnessed decades of confessions, heartbreaks, and quiet desperation. The checkerboard floor bore scuffs from work boots and high heels alike, a battlefield of mundane struggles where dreams came to die or be reborn over bottomless cups of coffee that tasted like hope mixed with resignation. Sarah Martinez moved through Monday's closing routine with the precision of someone who understood that chaos was always one moment away. At 32, she carried herself with an economy of motion that spoke of efficiency learned under fire, though Romano's regulars would never have guessed their gentle waitress had once held bleeding soldiers together with nothing but determination and medical tape. Afghanistan felt like another lifetime, yet her hands still remembered the weight of combat gear, the rhythm of helicopter rotors, the particular silence that followed explosions. 4 tours as a combat medic had taught her that everyone was fighting battles others couldn't see, including herself. The transition home had been a different kind of war. Sleepless nights when sirens sounded like incoming mortars, hypervigilance that made grocery shopping feel like reconnaissance, and the crushing realization that saving lives at 35,000 feet somehow mattered more than serving coffee at sea level. Each month brought the same arithmetic of survival: rent, utilities, groceries, and half her remaining paycheck mailed to her brother's college fund. The diner job barely kept her afloat financially, but drowning in bills felt manageable compared to drowning in purposelessness. She'd once been essential, irreplaceable. Now she felt invisible, fighting battles no one could see against an enemy that looked suspiciously like ordinary life. Monday's first surprise arrived at 6 p.m. in the form of Marcus Webb. Though Sarah didn't recognize the face that graced Forbes covers, she saw only another customer seeking refuge from Seattle's relentless drizzle, his expensive but understated clothing suggesting money earned rather than inherited. He chose the corner booth, the tactically superior position her military mind noted automatically, and ordered coffee with the weary politeness of someone who'd forgotten how to enjoy simple pleasures. Marcus had fled his downtown office after a board meeting that felt more like psychological warfare, seeking anonymity in this throwback diner where nobody would want anything from him except competent service. His $12 billion empire suddenly felt like a cage built from expectations and obligations, each success demanding greater sacrifices of his humanity. What he found instead was Sarah, a waitress who treated him like a person rather than a net worth, whose genuine disinterest in his wealth felt like cool water on sunburned skin. Over the next 3 hours, they established an unspoken contract of mutual respect. Sarah provided flawless service without performance, refilling his coffee with the quiet efficiency that had once kept field hospitals running during artillery bombardments. She never asked about his work, never angled for larger tips, never performed the elaborate dance of false friendliness, that most service interactions required. Marcus found himself studying her movements, recognizing something familiar in her hyper-awareness, the way she tracked every customer's position, how she kept her back to walls, the micro-calculations happening behind her professional smile. In his world of corporate politics and manufactured authenticity, her genuine competence was magnetic. "Everyone's fighting battles you know nothing about," she'd said when diffusing an argument between two drunk customers, her voice carrying weight that suggested personal experience with invisible wars. Their first real connection sparked during what Marcus later called the coffee machine incident. The ancient percolator began making sounds like a dying walrus, prompting him to observe, "That machine sounds like it's seen better decades." "Haven't we all?" Sarah replied, then caught herself. Too personal, too revealing. But Marcus heard the weight behind those words, not self-pity, but recognition of shared battle fatigue. "Sometimes the things that look most broken work the hardest," he said carefully. Sarah glanced up, meeting his eyes for the first time all evening. The strongest people are usually fighting battles nobody can see. There it was, the signature truth that would echo through both their lives. Neither realized this casual observation would become the foundation for everything that followed, a lens through which they'd learn to see not just each other, but themselves. Marcus returned Tuesday evening, claiming his usual corner booth without explanation. Sarah served him coffee and said nothing about his return, but something shifted in the careful distance they'd maintained. He'd spent the day thinking about her comment regarding unseen battles, recognizing in it a philosophy that explained much about leadership he'd never understood. "You handle difficult people well," he observed after watching her de-escalate another potential confrontation with the same surgical precision she'd used the night before. "Everyone's carrying invisible wounds," Sarah replied, unconsciously echoing her signature phrase. "Usually helps to remember that before you decide how to respond to someone." Marcus recognized wisdom earned through experience rather than textbooks. In Silicon Valley, he'd surrounded himself with brilliant minds, but brilliance and wisdom weren't synonymous. This waitress understood human nature with a depth that couldn't be taught in business schools. By Wednesday, other customers began noticing the subtle shift. The powerful-looking businessman in the corner booth who treated their Sarah with unusual respect. The way conversations flowed more naturally when he was present. How the diner's entire atmosphere seemed calmer during his visits. Tommy, the teenage dishwasher, whispered to Sarah during a busy dinner rush, "That guy's been here 3 nights straight. He's either planning to rob us or he's got a crush on you." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, not from romantic possibility, but from the recognition that someone found value in her presence beyond her ability to pour coffee. In Afghanistan, her worth had been measured in lives saved, decisions made under pressure, leadership when others froze. Here, she'd begun to believe her only value was efficiency and a friendly smile. Marcus represented something she hadn't dared hope for, someone who saw past the uniform, both military and civilian, to recognize the person underneath. Thursday brought their deepest conversation yet. Marcus shared carefully edited versions of his isolation, how wealth had become a barrier between him and authentic human connection. Sarah spoke obliquely about transition challenges, about finding purpose after government work overseas, without revealing the specifics that might change how he saw her. Leadership isn't about commanding from boardrooms, Marcus mused, stirring sugar into coffee that had long grown cold. It's about understanding people, isn't it? Really seeing them. The strongest leaders are usually fighting battles nobody can see, Sarah said, the phrase becoming their shared touchstone. They lead because they understand what it means to struggle, not because they've been protected from it. Neither realized they were describing each other with startling accuracy, each recognizing in the other qualities they'd forgotten they possessed. The foundation was being laid for a partnership neither had anticipated. Friday evening carried an undercurrent of tension neither could name. Seattle's autumn rain had intensified into a proper storm, drumming against windows like impatient fingers. The diner felt smaller somehow, more isolated, as if the weather had cut them off from the outside world. Sarah moved through her routines with heightened alertness that had nothing to do with romantic possibility and everything to do with instincts honed in war zones. Something felt different about the night, not wrong exactly, but poised on the edge of change. Marcus noticed her increased vigilance, recognizing it from his own high-stakes negotiations when millions hung in the balance. "Everything okay?" he asked during a coffee refill. "Just one of those nights," Sarah replied, but her eyes never stopped moving, cataloging exits and potential threats with military precision. Sometimes you can feel when something's coming, even if you don't know what. At 11:47 p.m., the door chimed with mechanical cheerfulness that became obscene when the masked figure stepped through. Jake Morrison, though they wouldn't learn his name until later, brought the storm inside with him, rainwater dripping from dark clothes as he raised a trembling revolver toward the only two people who'd witnessed his entrance. "Nobody fucking move!" The words shattered their peaceful evening like a grenade in a chapel. Marcus felt his billion-dollar confidence evaporate instantly, his hands shaking as primal fear overwhelmed decades of boardroom composure. Every instinct screamed contradictory commands: run, hide, fight, freeze. His paralysis was complete and humiliating. But Sarah's reaction defied every expectation. Where others would have screamed or ducked, she became utterly still, not frozen with terror, but calculating with lethal precision. Her eyes took inventory in microseconds. Young male, early 20s, old revolver, amateur stance, hands shaking with desperation rather than practiced criminality. This wasn't a professional predator, but someone pushed beyond his limits, which made him simultaneously less dangerous and more unpredictable. Like a war zone, she thought automatically, someone about to make fatal mistakes. "Empty the register now." Jake's voice cracked with the strain of trying to sound threatening while fighting his own terror. "I hear you completely," Sarah responded, her voice carrying the same calm authority she'd once used to direct trauma teams under fire. "Let me get that for you right now. You're doing great." Marcus watched in stunned fascination as Sarah moved with deliberate precision toward the register, each step calculated to project compliance while maintaining tactical advantage. She positioned herself between the gunman and the kitchen where Tommy had been working moments before, her body angled to preserve peripheral vision of both the threat and potential escape routes. But it was more than positioning. It was psychological warfare disguised as cooperation. "Just opening this register for you," she continued in that impossibly steady tone. "Nobody needs to get hurt here. You're handling this really well." The gunman's confusion was visible beneath his mask. This wasn't how robberies played out in movies or his imagination. Where was the hysteria? The begging? Instead, this waitress was treating him like a customer with a reasonable request, systematically diffusing his adrenaline and aggression with professional-grade de-escalation. The strongest people are usually fighting battles nobody can see, Marcus thought, finally understanding what Sarah had meant. Then sirens wailed in the distance. Tommy had called 911 from the parking lot before fleeing, a detail Sarah had anticipated, but Jake clearly hadn't. The young man's desperation transformed into panic as he realized his window was closing. Shit, shit, shit! He swung the revolver wildly between Sarah and Marcus. The weapon no longer pointed with purpose, but waved like a dangerous toy in the hands of someone who'd lost all control. That's when Sarah made the decision that would reveal everything Marcus thought he knew about her was merely the tip of an iceberg. Instead of ducking or pleading, she stepped forward, not backward into safety, but forward into danger with the fluid precision of someone who'd made identical choices countless times before. The movement was so quick, Marcus almost missed it, but he would replay it in his mind for years afterward. The moment a waitress transformed into a warrior. In the heartbeat, before she moved, Sarah's military training compressed years of combat experience into instant tactical assessment. Distance to target, 8 feet. Weapon type, old revolver, likely 5 rounds. Civilian positions, Marcus in booth, no other customers. Tommy, safely evacuated. Exit strategies. Front door blocked by threat, kitchen door accessible if needed. The young robber's amateur stance and emotional volatility made him predictable. Fear would drive him toward the sound of approaching sirens, creating the opening she needed. This wasn't Afghanistan, but the principles remained identical. Protect those who couldn't protect themselves, make decisions when others couldn't act. Step forward when stepping back meant others would suffer. All her invisible battles had prepared her for this visible one. Sarah moved like water flowing around stone fluid, inevitable, unstoppable. Her hand closed over the gun barrel as she pivoted, using Jake's momentum against him in a textbook disarmament technique that spoke of countless hours drilling under conditions where mistakes meant body bags. The robber's surprised yelp cut off abruptly as he found himself suddenly off balance, his weapon no longer under his control. "Gun down, hands visible," she commanded in a voice Marcus had never heard, not the gentle waitress tone, but the battlefield authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed when lives hung in the balance. The transformation was complete and startling, like watching a master artist reveal their true skill after hours of casual sketching. Nung ku kun ban jiao. Jake struggled against her control, younger, heavier, powered by desperation, but panic made him clumsy, while her training made her surgical. Sarah used leverage and technique rather than brute strength, maneuvering him toward the ground with the same controlled precision she'd once used to immobilize wounded soldiers who fought against the help they desperately needed. Every movement served multiple purposes: maintain weapon control, position for civilian safety, minimize harm to all parties, including the attacker. Years of treating enemy combatants had taught her that everyone was someone's child, that violence should serve protection rather than punishment. Marcus watched this woman he'd thought was simply a hard-working waitress demonstrate combat skills that belonged in military training videos, not late-night diners. Like watching a hidden master reveal themselves, he thought, finally understanding that strength often wore disguises. Jim then shot Quiet Jin. Within 30 seconds, Jake was on the ground, weapons secured, no shots fired. Sarah maintained control with precisely calibrated pressure enough to discourage resistance without causing injury. Her breathing remained controlled, her positioning strategic to maintain awareness of the entire space while neutralizing the threat. "Are you hurt?" she asked Marcus, without taking her eyes off the subdued attacker, her voice now carrying the calm authority of a trauma medic checking casualties. No, I'm fine," Marcus managed, his voice barely functional. "Are you military?" "Was," Sarah replied simply, maintaining professional focus. "Combat medic, 4 tours in Afghanistan." The pieces clicked into place for Marcus with stunning clarity. The hypervigilance, the way she handled crisis without losing her humanity, the invisible battles she'd referenced all week. She'd been fighting wars he couldn't see, carrying victories no one would ever know. Koan Kak Chien Thang Giai Quiet. Police arrived to controlled calm rather than chaos. Sarah provided a clear, detailed report with military bearing, her transition from warrior back to civilian seamless and professional. Jake Morrison, later revealed as a college dropout struggling with addiction and family financial crisis, was treated with dignity, even as he was arrested. "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez said as he finished taking statements, "that was textbook crisis management. You probably saved multiple lives tonight, including his." Sarah nodded acknowledgement, but showed no pride or satisfaction. Just another mission completed, another set of people protected from harm. But Marcus couldn't stop staring at her, finally seeing her completely understanding that he'd been in the presence of someone extraordinary all week without recognizing it. The strongest people really were fighting battles nobody could see. As the diner emptied and Sarah returned to closing procedures, moving with the same calm efficiency she'd shown all evening, Marcus struggled to process what he'd witnessed. This wasn't just competence under pressure, it was leadership in its purest form. "That was extraordinary," he said quietly, watching her reset tables as if disarming robbers was routine. "Everyone's fighting battles you know nothing about," Sarah replied, her signature phrase taking on new meaning. "Sometimes those battles prepare you for moments when others need protection. That's not extraordinary, that's just responsibility." Tash Jong Lao, Daiva Thong Jiep. Marcus made a decision that would transform both their lives. What if I told you I could offer you a position where you could protect people on a larger scale? Head of Crisis Management for Webb Industries. The resources to fight battles that actually matter. Sarah met his eyes directly. "Why?" "Because tonight I learned what real leadership looks like. The strongest people are usually fighting battles nobody can see, and you've been fighting yours alone long enough. Time to fight them with an army." 6 months later, Sarah Martinez stood in Webb Industries' Crisis Management Center, her signature phrase now corporate philosophy. "Everyone's fighting battles you know nothing about." Her invisible wars had finally found visible purpose, and Marcus had learned that true wealth meant recognizing hidden strength in others.